"Mom, I already sold your beach house and Dad's truck. We needed the money." With those cold words, Lila Vaughan hung up the phone and vanished into Europe, with her husband leaving her 71-year-old mother, Marlene Quinn, stripped of everything she held dear. The house where summers were filled with laughter, the truck that still carried her late husband's scent, gone in a single phone call. But what Lila didn't know was that Arthur Quinn had left behind a secret hidden in a manila envelope, one that could turn her betrayal into the greatest twist of all. What happens when a daughter trades love for greed and a mother decides to teach her the most painful lesson of her life? Stay with this story because the truth Marlene reveals will leave you speechless. The phone call came on a rainy Tuesday morning, just as I was waiting for my name to be called in the doctor's office. I didn't recognize my own daughter's voice at first. Lila Vaughan. My only child sounded almost like a stranger, cold, detached. "Mum," she said flatly, "we're flying to Europe tomorrow. Derek and I needed cash, so I already sold your beach house and Arthur's old truck. Oh, and your car too. We'll deposit your share later. Bye." Then the line went dead. For a long moment, I sat frozen in that uncomfortable plastic chair, the hum of the waiting room pressing around me. 45 years of sacrifice, of raising her through sleepless nights and working double shifts so she could go to college discarded in a 2-minute phone call. But to my own surprise, I didn't cry. Not this time, because my daughter didn't know the whole truth. My name is Marlene Quinn, 71 years old widow of the only man I ever loved. 6 months ago, Arthur died suddenly at breakfast. 1 minute he was smiling at me over coffee telling me good morning, my love, and the next, his hand went still on the table. That was the last thing he ever said to me. Since then, I thought Lila had become my anchor. She helped with the funeral, took me shopping, even insisted I see a doctor now that you're alone. I mistook her smile for love. Now I realized it was calculation. The beach house she sold, our family sanctuary on Cannon Beach, Oregon, wasn't just wooden shingles. It was where Arthur taught Lila to swim, where we strung Christmas lights across the porch every year. And that Ford pickup, Arthur's pride and joy, still carried his cologne in the seats. Lila knew all of that. She sold it anyway. Yet, even as bitterness threatened to choke me, another memory surfaced. 3 days before Arthur died, he had slipped a manila envelope into my hands. "If something happens to me, Marlene, open this when you're ready." I tucked it away, too consumed by grief to look. Now sitting under the fluorescent lights of the clinic, I remembered. By the time the doctor called me in, I was already thinking of that envelope. He told me I was healthy for my age, that I needed more rest and better meals. I nodded, barely hearing him. My mind was racing. When I reached home, I went straight to my bedroom and opened the dresser. There it was, untouched, my name, written across the front in Arthur's careful handwriting. My hands trembled as I carried it to the bed we had shared for nearly 5 decades. Outside, the light faded into Seattle's grey dusk shadows, creeping through the windows. I opened the envelope. What I found inside stopped my breath deeds: investment certificates, bank statements, and a letter in Arthur's familiar hand. "My dearest Marlene," it began. "If you are reading this, it means I am no longer beside you. Forgive me for keeping this from you, but I wanted you to live without worry. For years, I invested every dollar we saved. We own more than the beach house. We own 6 other properties, including the apartment building where Lila and Derek live, and shares in 3 companies worth far more than you imagine. My love, you are not poor. You are secure. Please use this wisely. And be careful if Lila ever knew the truth, she might love us for what we have, not who we are." Tears blurred my eyes as I read. The irony struck like thunder. Lila thought she had left me with nothing, when in truth I had everything. That night, I spread the documents across the kitchen table, lit only by the lamp Arthur once used to read his newspaper. The building in Capitol Hill Pinecrest Residences, where Lila laughed with Derek over wine and boasted about her bright future, belonged to me. She had been living under my roof without even knowing it. The next morning, Lila called again. Her tone was sugar-sweet this time. Mom, we transferred the money from the house and truck. Deposited your share into your account. It's 30%. Fair right. That should help you for a few months while you find a smaller place. I forced my voice calm. And when are you leaving, dear? This afternoon. Derek's business opportunity in Europe is too good to miss. But don't worry, when we're back in 6 months, we'll help you find something more appropriate. As if she knew what I needed. After she hung up, I laughed. I actually laughed. Not out of joy, but out of sheer disbelief. My daughter had stripped me of everything sentimental and offered me scraps from my own life, all for a fantasy her husband concocted. But anger wasn't my strongest feeling. No. What cut deepest was the ease with which she had dismissed me, erased me from her world as if I were a burden. Yet Arthur's letter had given me something she could never have imagined power. That afternoon, I called Calvin Renshaw, Arthur's lawyer, the one who had shaken my hand at the funeral, and whispered, "If you ever need help, call me." "Mr. Renshaw," I said when he picked up, my voice steadier than it had been in months, "I found some documents Arthur left behind. I think they change everything. Can I see you tomorrow?" His pause told me he already suspected. "Of course, Mrs. Quinn. I'll clear my morning." That night I dreamed of Arthur sitting in his chair, newspaper folded on his lap. He looked at me with the smile I had missed for half a year and said, "It's time, my love. Time you stood up for yourself." I woke with a feeling I hadn't known since the day he died purpose. Tomorrow I would step into Calvin's office not as a discarded widow, but as the rightful owner of everything Lila thought she had stolen. My daughter had set a cruel game in motion, but she had no idea I now held every card. Thanks for watching. Sorry for the interruption, but we hope you will help us improve our content in the future. Do you think Marlene should forgive her daughter for betraying her or make her face the full consequences? Would you have opened the envelope right away or waited as she did? And if your own child sold your memories for money, could you ever trust them again? The day after meeting with Calvin Renshaw, I walked through downtown Seattle with my head higher than it had been in months. Marble floors and towering glass buildings reflected a city that seemed to rush past me, unaware that a quiet widow was carrying secrets worth millions. Calvin confirmed what Arthur's documents had already whispered. Every deed, every certificate, every share was real. Not only was I the rightful owner of Pinecrest Residences, where Lila and Derek lived, but also the beach house on Cannon Beach and several other properties scattered across the state. And the kicker. The sale of the beach house had been entirely illegal. Lila had no right to sell what was never hers. Quinn Calvin said, sliding a thick folder across his desk, "You could reclaim every asset tomorrow. The courts will side with you instantly. We can also prosecute your daughter for fraud if you choose." I looked him straight in the eye. "No, I don't want her in jail. That would be too easy. I want her to learn." He leaned back, intrigued. "Then what do you want me to do? I want you to fix everything quietly. Get me back my house, my truck, my buildings. And no one, especially my daughter, can know I'm behind it." "Not yet." Calvin nodded slowly. "You're playing the long game." "Exactly. For weeks I lived a double life. By day, I was the poor widow abandoned by her daughter, receiving sympathetic looks from neighbours like Nora Beck, who whispered at the grocery store, 'Marlene, how will you manage now that Lila's gone?' I would smile weakly and let them pity me. But at night, under the soft kitchen light, I became something else, a woman of means, silently orchestrating the recovery of her empire. The news of Edward's reckless debt spread quickly. One afternoon, Nora came rushing to my door out of breath. "Did you hear Derek is in deep trouble with the bank? They're investigating loans he took out using the condo as collateral. But it turns out," she lowered her voice, "the condo isn't even his." I pressed my lips together to hide the smile tugging at the corners. My son-in-law had built his life on lies, and the walls were crumbling. Not long after, word came that Lila and Derek's grand European investment was a fraud. Derek had vanished into thin air, leaving my daughter stranded and drowning in debt. She returned weeks later, pale thinner, with dark circles carved under her eyes. She dragged one suitcase into Pinecrest Residences, only to find an eviction notice waiting at the door. The letter bore the name of my husband's company, Harbourlight Holdings. She had no idea it was me behind it. That evening, the phone rang. Mom Lila's voice cracked. It was the first time she had sounded like my daughter in months. I don't know what to do. Derek left me in Barcelona. There was never a business deal. He just ran. And now the banks say I owe everything. I came home to an eviction notice. I can't breathe, Mom. Can I come stay with you? Just for a little while? The irony was exquisite. She had cast me aside like an old coat, and now she was crawling back. I steadied my voice. Of course, honey. This will always be your home. When Lila walked through my front door, I barely recognized her. The confident woman who had once laughed at my old furniture now looked broken. Her designer clothes hung loose on her frame, her hands shook as she clutched her suitcase. For a moment, my heart ached with pity. Then I remembered her cold voice in that first phone call, announcing she'd sold my memories like trinkets at a yard sale. She dropped her bags in the same room she had slept in as a teenager. Humiliation colored every movement. That night she sat at the kitchen table and confessed everything: Edward's debts, the forged signatures, the $100,000 hole she was falling into. She wept until her shoulders shook, and for the first time I saw genuine regret. Still, I kept my mask firmly in place. We'll figure something out, honey, one step at a time. The following day she found a smaller envelope among Derek's abandoned belongings. Arthur's handwriting marked it with my name. Inside a key and a note. If our daughter ever faces her darkest hour, this will help. Use it wisely. It led to a safety deposit box at Cascadia First Bank. Together we opened it. Inside were jewels, rings, necklaces, heirlooms worth nearly $200,000. Lila gasped, her eyes wide. Mom, this could save us. We could sell them, pay off the debts, buy back the beach house. I studied her face. Even now, her instinct wasn't to protect family legacy, but to liquidate it for survival. But I said nothing. Instead, I let her carry the jewels home, spread them on the table, and begin calculating. Within days, she sold most of them. She kept only my engagement ring and her grandmother's necklace. With $180,000 in hand, she paid down Derek's most dangerous debts, the ones with collateral that could strip her bare. At night, she sat across from me, face buried in her hands. I ruined everything, Mom. Dad's memory, our home, you. I destroyed it all. I wanted to tell her the truth, that she hadn't ruined me, that Arthur had shielded me with foresight. But I stayed silent, because she needed to learn what rock bottom felt like. Soon, Lila took a part-time job cleaning offices at night. The woman who once rolled her eyes at hard-working janitors now scrubbed floors under fluorescent lights. When she stumbled home exhausted, she whispered, "Mom, I think I finally understand. Money isn't security, people are." I nodded, offering her tea, hiding my triumph, because she had no idea I was already plotting her rescue. Weeks passed in a strange rhythm. By day, Lila dragged herself to job interviews or came home late from cleaning offices. Her hands blistered, her shoulders heavy with exhaustion. By night, I sat in the living room surrounded by Arthur's documents, quietly working with Calvin Renshaw to prepare the final step of my plan. My daughter thought she had nothing. In truth, she was already free from every debt Derek Vaughan had shackled to her name. She just didn't know it yet. One morning, Calvin called. "Mrs. Quinn, we have everything. We've gathered proof of Derek's fraud, the forged signatures, the false loans. Angela, pardon me, Lila is legally clear. Every cent of those debts can be erased." My hand trembled slightly on the receiver. "And the property's all secured. The beach house is back in your name. The truck has been recovered. Pinecrest Residences belongs to you outright. Harbourlight Holdings is fully under your control." For a moment, silence filled my kitchen. After months of secrecy, the moment had come. "Good," I said at last. "It's time she knew the truth." Calvin arranged a meeting at his office. I told Lila we were going to see a lawyer who might help her with her debts. She hesitated, wringing her hands. "Mum, I can't afford a lawyer. I barely have enough for groceries." "Don't worry about that now," I replied softly. "Just come with me." When we arrived, Calvin greeted us with a professional smile and handed her a thick folder. Lila opened it, her eyes darting across the pages. Her expression shifted confusion, disbelief, shock. "This says Derek forged my signature, that I'm not responsible, that I don't owe anything," she whispered. "But who paid for this? How is this possible?" I drew a long breath. It was time to end the charade. "Because I did," I said gently. "Lila, your father left me more than you ever knew. He left me everything." I slid another folder across the desk. Inside were the deeds, the bank statements, the investment certificates. "All of this belongs to me, which means in time it will belong to you." Her mouth fell open. You've been wealthy this entire time." "Yes," I said simply. "Since the day your father died. I knew it when you sold the beach house. I knew it when you called me from Europe. And I watched you struggle because there was no other way for you to learn." Her lips trembled. "You let me suffer when you could have saved me." I nodded. "Because you needed to understand. You needed to feel what it meant to lose everything you took for granted. You needed to learn the value of family, of respect, of honest work." Her eyes filled with tears. Different tears this time, not self-pity, but the raw sting of realization. "I treated you like garbage. I abandoned you. And you saved me anyway." I reached for her hand. "I saved you in the only way that would last." Calvin excused himself discreetly, leaving us alone. The silence stretched heavy but not unbearable. Finally, Lila whispered, "Mom, I don't deserve forgiveness." "Maybe not," I said softly. "But forgiveness isn't about deserving. It's about love. And I never stopped loving you, not for a second." She broke then, sobbing into my arms like a child again. I held her not with calculation this time, but with the tenderness I thought grief had stolen from me. For the first time in months, I felt like her mother again. After that day, everything changed. Lila continued her cleaning job, though she no longer had to. "I need to finish what I started," she explained one evening, pulling on her uniform. "I need to know I can stand on my own 2 feet." Her pride no longer came from possessions or Derek's promises. It came from work she earned herself. One night she told me, "I want to go back to school. I want to study social work. After everything I went through, I want to help other women who feel abandoned, who think they have no one." Arthur would have been proud. I could almost hear his voice, that gentle laugh. "It's about time, Marlene. She finally gets it." Months passed, and slowly our life built itself into something new. I used part of Arthur's fortune to establish a foundation for women abandoned by their families or partners, those who had nowhere else to go. Lila volunteered there in her free hours, mentoring women who were just beginning their painful journey out of despair. The day finally came when we returned to the beach house together. As we pulled into the driveway, Lila froze, staring at the porch Arthur had built with his own hands. Tears slid down her cheeks. "I sold this house without a second thought," she whispered. "I thought it was just property. But standing here now, I can feel him everywhere. In the garden, in the porch, in the sea air. I can't believe I gave that away." "You didn't," I said softly. "Not really. It was never gone. It was always waiting for you to come home." We spent that day cooking, cleaning, repairing small things. By sunset, we sat on the porch watching waves crash against the shore. The sky turned crimson, and Lila turned to me with a steadiness I hadn't seen in years. "Mom, I want to make this house more than a memory. Let's turn it into something good. A shelter for women like me, women who've been betrayed, who need a place to start again. What better way to honor Dad than to give this house back to others?" I smiled, my heart swelling. "That's exactly what your father would have wanted." So that's what we did. The beach house became a sanctuary, its doors open to women who needed hope. And every time I walked those halls, I felt Arthur's presence not in grief anymore, but in pride. One evening, as Lila prepared lesson plans for her classes in social work, she said, "Do you know what I finally learned? Mum, true wealth isn't money. It's having someone who refuses to give up on you even when you've given up on yourself." And in that moment, I knew my plan had worked. I hadn't just saved my daughter's life, I had given her back her soul. Thanks for watching. Sorry for the interruption, but we hope you will help us improve our content in the future. What about you, dear viewers? Do you think Marlene was right to let her daughter suffer before revealing the truth? Do you believe hitting rock bottom can truly change someone's heart? Tell me in the comments if this story touched you. Comment the number 100 below. And let me know from which country are you watching this story today. Don't forget to share this video so more people can feel the power of forgiveness and second chances.